I gotta ask you then, looking ahead now, we're in 2023 and looking where the future is going about some watch trends.
Yeah.
And the one that is really, really debated, has been for some time now, is big watch, small watch. Where do
It's,
you
it's gonna
see it? Are
it's gonna come
we
back to the small.
that's
Well, I shouldn't say small.
smallish,
30,
smaller?
36,
Yeah.
38, 40 is perfect. And I think more people are going to start to realize how perfect something like the 36 Datejust really is. And I think that people are getting caught up too much in the numbers, because a lot of it has to do with how a watch wears on your wrist, and that more has to do with the dial size than anything else. So you look at when they changed the Explorer from 39 to 36, it was the same dial. They just changed some of the case shape, and it wears on the wrist identical. So the wrist presence is almost the same, despite this 3 millimeter difference. So when you get a piece like the Datejust with the fluted bezel that that shines and reflects light and sparkles, and it's a very thin bezel and relatively large or dial diameter, that's just a perfect wear. And I think that when people more are buying watches to wear them, they're going to come back to that realization that it's that perfect sweet spot. Because the thing with the 40 millimeter, like I have the day date that's 40, and I have the one that's 36. And the 40 is really more of a sport watch, and the 36 is more of a perfect shirt cuff suit, even more casual, because it still occupies enough space on the wrist. So unless you're a really, big 6'5" WWE wrestler, you don't need those bigger watches. And so they might still always have those for that niche client for whom it's an appropriate size. But I think trend wise, I think the big watch is seen its peak.
Even with the the way you're bringing it up, your 36 is the platinum
Yeah,
with the ice blue dial.
yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
remember. And then your 40 is the yellow gold with the
The yellow
tuxedo
gold.
dial.
Yeah, yeah. So
There
there's
he is.
and the thing is that they not that much different, but
No,
it's remarkable. And with the platinum, the
this
smooth bezel, it makes a difference. But they wear very differently. But I think the 36, for whatever reason, at some point they started to say it was a lady size, but I think it's a perfect sweet spot.
think how long, and I mentioned in a different episode before that if I had one watch to collect one model of one watch, it's a Datejust 36. That's the classic size. You can fit it
Yeah,
under anything. And the 40 day date being the yellow gold, that one with the yellow gold makes it look even more gargantuous, I think, versus if it was white gold.
yeah,
But
yeah. It's and I used to have the Date 8 2, which was even bigger,
it
and that
was
had the
really
thicker,
chunky. It
fatter.
was really
Yeah,
chunky. Yeah, the
and it was a
casing.
42 millimeter, and that was
Yeah.
part of the answer to the big watch craze. And the
Yes.
Rolex wanted to join in on the big watch craze, and the proportions were way off. So the 40 at least streamlined things a little bit, but I still think 36 is the perfect Goldilocks when it comes to that type of watch.
I think woke up to this is where it was my read was IWC. And you see
Mm.
now where they're going with the pilots and they're cutting down on the sizes of the pilots and the Portuguese and
Mm.
Portuguesers. That's where it seems to be going. But then they have to take functions out of there. So then you're not seeing the 7 day movement and the power reserve anymore. And to me, that's part of the whole love of a pilot.
Yeah,
But the new popular ones are the smaller, thinner ones, but to do that, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't put all these functionalities and complications. I think there's
yeah.
a reason why the pilot was its size, and it's to get in that enormous power reserve.
Yeah, and you look at those watches though, they very thin bezels, and it's
Yeah.
all dial. So when you get a watch like that that's all dial, it wears really really large.
Yes.
So it's like so that's the Lange, that's only 42, but it's all dial. So it actually it's a monster on the wrist, and so it's
So it fits like a
proportions
44 or 45, I assume.
easily, yeah,
Yeah.
easily. And that's the thing is there's some much bigger watches I had, like even the Flowcroft, or some of the big diver Seikos. This wears larger than that because the like, something like that Seiko Big Diver 45 millimeters, or I think even 47, but the dial size isn't that large. So there's a large case, but visually it's all broken up. Whereas this is just all dial across, very thin bezel. So this wears more like a sport watch than a dress watch. It's a Langa that's inherently more dressy.
I don't know about you. I got very much small wrists. No matter how big my forearms are, I still have the tiny wrists, but I like the big watches. I don't care, and I like the small watches. So I'll wear a 36 Datejust, or I'll wear the enormous Big Pilot, and I'm happy the same way. But you have to think about what shirt you're wearing, because you're wearing a dress shirt, you're wearing a giant Big Pilot.
Yeah,
It's not going under the cuff anytime
yeah,
soon. Those
yeah,
shirts are
yeah.
those watches are meant to be worn over the cuffs, which I
Yeah.
found very hilarious.